I think you used to call my show when I was a local talk show. No, when I first became a national show host in 2000, and you were saying that all of this Islamic terrorism was being run by the KGB. Wasn't that your allegation?
Most of it, yes. Most of it. We know that Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, one of the top terror leaders in Afghanistan now, was a Soviet agent, and he got the bulk of the CIA aid during the Afghan-Soviet war. The Soviet press, there's an interview with the leader of the Communist Party of Lebanon, and they take credit for chasing the U.S. Marines out of Lebanon when we hear it was the Muslim terror bombing of the Marine barracks. It's the Soviet hand in the Muslim glove. The same way the communists penetrated Christianity, that's liberation theology. Most people now know liberation theology. Well, the same way communists penetrated the Christian religion, they penetrated Islam. They find the most radical, crazy strain and promote it against the West. The goal is to bypass mutual assured destruction. If Russia can't shoot us, we can't shoot them. Therefore, their weapons are neutralized. But if they could put their weapons in other countries, well, that's mutual assured destruction too. Well, no, not if that country is run by a suicide bomber type. The Soviets are outplaying us. They had a bad hand because their economy was weak. So they faked the collapse, and they made capitalism then have to rebuild their economy. And if it doesn't work, capitalism is discredited. But at the same time, under the guise of collapse, they claim they're losing their nukes. They claim they're losing their nuclear scientists. Well, they're not losing them to Japan. They're losing them to the radical Muslim states. It's a trick. I said it before it happened. It's obvious if you study it.
All right, so Jimmy, let's say you were a man ahead of your time in your thinking, and I know you call many talk shows. I hope they're aware of how smart you really are and how far-seeing. Let's go down this road together. Russia has just decided to help Iran. China has just decided to send oil to Iran. That means Israel's out and Iran is in. Is that correct?
Right. And remember, it was communists who helped topple the Shah. It wasn't just the people in Iran who wanted the Shah out. The Soviets targeted him, and the Shah himself, when he was still in power, warned about the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington working to topple him. That is an extremely powerful KGB front group that's dismantling us because they influence our media, they influence our politicians. The House Progressive Caucus is like the political arm of the Institute for Policy Studies. They have meetings, they have connections.
Who is in the House Progressive Caucus? Barbara Lee, of course. Who else?
Pelosi was one of the leaders. So a lot of people...
Pelosi, who took a wonderful private healthcare system and made it into a public system, more or less, a government-run one. How come she has nothing to say about the privatization of NASA?
Who knows? She maybe is saying something. But remember, too, that Marxist Congresswoman Maxine Waters wanted to nationalize our energy industry. Socialize.
All right, so let's go. Let's start at the crux of the entire world right now, which is Israel. Whether people know it or not, Israel is at the crossroads of the future of the world. That is both biblically and politically true. What's going to happen in the Middle East, in your opinion?
Well, America is always the ultimate target. Israel looks like the target now, but remember, Israel, according to the radical Muslims, is the little Satan. America's the big Satan, just like the Soviets referred to America as enemy number one. I suggested some things that could happen. The Soviets or the Muslim terror could lure hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops there, and then they could be slaughtered with weapons of mass destruction. That didn't happen in Iraq, but that's something still potential. America's the target, not Israel. Remember,
well, I know who the target is, but what do you think will happen with regard to Israel? Israel could defy all of the world order, could it not?
I think they have to. I really think they have to. Somebody has to stop. Iran has to be stopped, their nuclear program. But it's also, if we stop it, we still have to know who is behind it and what the goals were.
Why would Russia and China back Iran? What did they gain by backing Iran?
Well, they gain in the third world. They look like they're helping the non-whites against the white capitalists. They also look like they're helping the third world. And they have long-term connections, the communists. Russia and China are partners. There has been no real split. After Stalin died, that split was healed. They kept the illusion of a split, so they have a two-way to have war against us, and we don't understand it. And they're working with radical Islam. The same way they got into Christianity.
But do you actually believe Obama's a secret plant, sort of the secret agent, the sleeper? What do you actually think?
Well, it's really not too secret, but See, at one time, the communist movement was a party movement. Everybody was somewhere connected to the party and somehow. Today, the movement is so huge, you don't have to be connected knowingly to any Communist Party member. There's millions and millions of Marxists now because they were being brainwashed in schools, unopposed, very few people. David Horowitz was trying to point that out, a few people here and there. I mean, they have Marxist scholars conferences, socialist world scholars conferences. These people meet, they strategize, they coordinate, and they're all going in the same direction.
So are you saying we're finished? Are you saying they won and it's over, the chess game's over?
Well, we're not in checkmate yet, but they're heading toward that. They're moving.
Well, wait, what do you mean we're not in checkmate yet? The Defense Secretary, William Gates, just the other day said it's wonderful to cut the nukes by 30%. Everywhere you turn, he's a rubber stamp for Obama. He's never said one word that Obama hasn't agreed with. Or shall I put it the other way? Whatever Obama does, Robert Gates checks and says yes.
Well, it looks like mass insanity, but what's the end result going to be? We're going to have to rely on the UN for control, and that's what some of these people, the behind-the-scenes thing is. They want world government. Now, I've only studied really the communist part of the movement, but there are other parts of the movement for world government, and if you take away the threat, the fear of the communist world movement, that means that those people then unite with the world socialists and the other globalists, even among...
Robert, look at this study. This is from New York Times, CBS, two far-left outlets, correct? Even that poll just came out minutes ago. 52% say Obama moving America towards socialism. That's astonishing, Jimmy.
Yeah, but see, some people don't mind it. Like, in other words, it's a bad thing to you and me and your listeners, but other people, that's not a negative. It's like pointing out somebody's a communist. That no longer has that negative stigma it used to and should still have. Did you see the New York Post the other day? Arthur Herman had an editorial, "The Bear is Back," and he says, excuse me, anyone who imagined we won the Cold War had better think again. That's Arthur Herman in the New York Post. The Bear is Back, Tuesday, April 13th.
No, I didn't see that one. But I'm shocked that the New York Times and CBS would run a poll where they actually ask the question whether the president's policies, quote, are moving the country toward more socialism, and 52% answered towards socialism.
Like I said,
so it's almost as though the New York Times and CBS are boasting about it. It's almost as though they're trying to expose or out the whole socialist movement in the United States of America because they agree with it.
That's right. Remember, the Times supported Stalin. They actually had a secret agreement with Stalin to not do any negative reporting on what's going on in the Soviet Union, so they covered up the 10
Wait a minute. There's no difference between what the Times did with Stalin and what that Nobel Prize-winning putz, Friedman, or if he ever won one, had the audacity 3 weeks ago to give a speech where he said, our system is a cumbersome, inefficient system. In times of crisis, we should have a ruling elite which gives us our guidelines of what we should do. Don't you remember that? I was shocked by this.
That is exactly what the communists say. Ralph Peters the other day said, we're playing checkers, our enemies are playing chess.
I know, playing chess. That's an old one. Ralph does very good work, and I don't want to negate him in any way. But let's go back to this again. Look what I just said. Look what just came up. The fact of the matter is the New York Times now has columnists who are glorifying communist China and getting away with it as though this is perfectly normal to do.
They said Mao was an agrarian reformer, a Chinese George Washington. They said the same thing about Castro. They said that about Daniel Ortega. The old gray lady is a slut, and she has a lot of blood on her hands.
On her skirts. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Well, Jimmy, I don't know what to do. Can I give you a free book, a hat, a cup, a shoe? What would you...
You could give me for free. I need anything for free I could get now.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it. Well, you'd be a hell of a researcher, Jimmy.
I've been doing
it's a shame a man with your intelligence isn't working in some policy institute. What happened to the conservative think tanks in America? Why wouldn't they hire a man like you?
Well, I guess because I'm a high school dropout and I don't speak the King's English, and also I've discredited a lot of people who keep saying we won the Cold War, so they put their own...
Yeah, but you know, high school dropout doesn't mean anything. I know several people who are high school dropouts who are running rings around PhDs, by the way. So don't underestimate the lack of education as a reflection of a lack of intelligence. Jimmy, hold on a minute. Before you go, let's go to, you said something earlier, Institute of Policy Studies. Who is that? Who runs that?
That was set up in the early to mid-'60s by a Russian communist who came to America. He used to own Fabergé Cosmetics. He sold it, and with that money, they used to found it. Fabergé Cosmetics is a fine company, but I'm just saying in the past.
No, but who's in it now? Institute of Policy Studies, which you're alleging is a communist front group.
It's a known KGB front group. The FBI had files on them. They're so powerful. They took the FBI to court, and the FBI had a